We sincerely appreciate every member's presence today, especially given the challenges posed by the recent windstorm.
Today we'll be asking 15 questions, and every candidate will receive the opportunity to answer each question. This meeting will be recorded and posted on our website for future references. If you wish to access it, please contact me or Rashi after the meeting. We are pleased to welcome Mr. Suman Saha, Mr. Gaurav Maria, Ms. Sandhya Gangadharan, and Mr. John Hattori. So, our first question for today will be: how did you develop your understanding of financial literacy? Mr. Maria, do you want to start us off?
Sure, Arun. Ashi and Anu, firstly, thank you for inviting all of us. It's such a privilege to talk to, young school students who are doing so well, and I'm very excited about being on the panel here today. And I wish you great success in high school and in years ahead. To answer your question on financial literacy, look. Uh, it was an evolution as an individual that I came to know about financial literacy. Growing up, my parents instilled in me the value of money and saving and being thoughtful about where to spend, how to spend. Through my school career, I learned a little bit about interest rates and some of the various financial instruments, which I'm sure you girls are getting educated on. As I started earning, I started experimenting with some of those financial instruments, whether it was CD or stock market, and I still continue to learn it. So I would say it's, as an individual, it has been an evolution. There is not a day which goes by when I don't come to know a little more about what I know when it comes to financial literacy than I knew yesterday. So, and that has been my journey.
Thank you so much for your response. Would anyone else like to add anything?
Sure, I'll add something quickly. I think Gaurav hit the nail on the head. I mean, we all learn pretty young, and then those skills continue to improve over time, whether it's in business or some vocation. I would add something else to say that developing financial literacy, which in my mind is really just making good decisions related to money, right, is driven by having a healthy curiosity, right? If you have a healthy curiosity and you can engage in questions, whether that's with your parents or a mentor or a teacher or even your peers, that's how you develop knowledge and understanding of anything, including something like financial literacy. So ask questions, be inquisitive, don't be afraid, put yourself out there, and that's how you learn so you can make better decisions in the future.
All right. Thank you so much for that response.
Okay, my 2 cents, right? At your age, I did not have any literacy, financial literacy. I'm glad that you guys are talking about this, and I have a daughter who is 24 years old now, so maybe a couple of years older than you. So, I mean, I did not have any money at that stage, trust me, until I was in college and started earning by providing private tuitions in India. That was my money, to be honest with you, beyond my parents, whatever they were giving me for college education. And it was pretty cheap in India. By the way, if I convert to dollars, you'll be amazing, right? How much we used to pay per semester for engineering colleges in India. A long story short, over a period of time, my financial literacy basically developed. Whatever I earn, I need to save, and now how can I save? And that's how it developed. And what Gaurav was saying, right? Over a period of time, when you save something, then you say, how can you grow that savings, right? Because I mean, to John's point, financial literacy important is if you keep something in the bank, then there is an interest rate and there's an inflation. So it ultimately negates, right, when you keeps in the bank when the both things are balanced. So it came over time, and I believe little bit literate now, but not necessarily. Try to do the same thing with my daughter. First, her open a e-trade account and put her own money into that e-trade account and let her play with it. So just learn by mistakes, as John was mentioning.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of subscribe to everything what has been said, and I think the one that resonates to me on my personal experience, it's been learning from mistakes, right? So I think when I was really young, I went ahead and invested just because a friend asked me to. and I had not done my research, right? So that was a very hard learning, but has stuck with me. Similarly, I did sold a property in India to invest in a friend's restaurant business in the UK. So we hadn't even signed papers, right? So there was there was so much of trust, but then very important lessons came from that. You have to do your due diligence. You should have formal agreements, even if you're friends, right? And there shouldn't be any emotional attachment to your financial decisions. So these were a few things that I had learned in my experience.
All right. Thank you all for your responses. Those are very insightful and very useful. All right. So our next question will be, what financial habits do you think have had the biggest impact on your personal or professional life? Mr. Saha, do you want to start us off here?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy for me, and I was just, adding to what I was telling, right? Living beyond your means and saving as much as possible, because I did not grow up in money, and so whatever I learned at a very early stage. So I paid for my own marriage, just for your own records, right? So so learned that you have to save beyond what you spend. Even if you earn $10, right? Somebody's earning $100. How can I save to the maximum possible without compromising with the basic necessities of life, right? I mean, so that's what I would actually say. And I try to follow the same thing. I do not believe my daughter follows the same thing, but I do today. And me and Sandhya and Somil were having a conversation about what hotels do you stay in when we travel, right? So, Sandhya, if you remember, in Dallas. Anyways, long story short, savings is my mantra. So even today, whatever I earn.
I'll just add something there. I think beyond savings, and savings is a great start, Suman. I think it resonates with all of us. I think you have to measure uh, what is the impact of how you are doing, and keeping track of things regularly is yet another great habit which I have developed over time. So that you can, as you are investing your money in different instruments, or you are saving, you are checking back in terms of how your assets have been performing or not performing, what financial decisions you need to take so that you can maximize your gain or avoid losses and pitfalls. I would also say one needs to, as a part of the education, be very aware in terms of the current economic, political, social news, because the performance of your portfolio is a function of not just how you have invested, but various macro forces driving that. Right. So, for example, if there's a lot of investment in technology, then the technology market would do significantly better than the real estate market, which traditionally grows by a certain percent, right? We all knew what happened with interest rates going up. People were getting a lot better returns on CDs and long-term bonds than they were doing in the past. So you measuring how your portfolio is performing, keeping a check on it on an ongoing basis, and I would say staying current with what's happening in the world around you would be two you know two great habits to develop early on.
Yeah, and if they're looking for a guideline, I heard Suman and Gaurav say, that good saving behaviors are important, which they are, right? 20% is the rule of thumb I've always used, is at a minimum, make sure you're saving 20% of what you earn. And when you take that money, make sure you're truly saving it and putting it into something that's going to appreciate, right? Appreciate might be, a home or some land or some sort of equity or stock, right? You want to put that money aside and make it disappear, right? You don't look at it, you don't monitor it, right? It goes into a black hole and it doesn't exist, right? And it's there for the future, right? So from a personal standpoint, I think that's a habit that has been a big impact. And then from a professional standpoint, I think from a financial habit standpoint, you really want to look broader, bigger, right? Be able to absorb the entire landscape of what's going on. How it's not just about, managing a budget for this quarter or for this month, but it's more along the lines of how can I grow this business by 5 times in the next 2 years, right? What decisions do I need to make now to grow this business? And sometimes that's investing in the business. Sometimes it's building a foundation of talent that you work with. Perhaps that's starting to go outside and network and build your client base. But when it comes to from a professional financial habit, you want to create the habit is really look bigger than just kind of the myopic day-to-day things that might distract you.
And one thing that has helped me is automatically saving my, a portion of the money I receive. That's had the biggest impact, if I were to say, on my personal and professional life, right? So setting up automatic transfers, it might sound simple, but then that kind of ensured consistency for me.
All right. Thank you all for your responses. Those are very insightful and very useful. All right. For our third question, how do you suggest others manage an equilibrium between saving for the future while managing current expenses? Ms. Gangadhar, would you like to start?
Sure. So I think understanding your budget, right? And it differs at different stages of your life, right? But even now, understanding what your monthly budget is, right? And I think today there's a lot of apps that can help you with that. So setting budgets and investing money, I would say at the beginning when you start receiving it, right? And I know John mentioned about the savings rule, and I'm aware that it kind of has helped a lot of people. But in my case, and what I've seen is, I would say adjust your savings as your income increases, right? And John did mention about a few types of investments, right? And I've always seen that prioritizing liquid assets over the illiquid assets, right? So like something that can be easily converted to cash without a significant loss, that that can kind of help you to manage an equilibrium. But I think the key is starting a habit now, right? Even if the amounts are small. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I would just add, understanding one's cash flow, I think is the foundation of it, right? Because one needs to understand one's cash flow for an entire year, both in personal life as well as in professional life, and that becomes the foundation of creating a budget. If your cash outflow, even if you have earmarked a certain percentage for your savings, I think John gave us the rule of 20, to marking 20% of your savings for saving, 20% of your income for savings. But if your expenses are in such a way that you are drawing in all your savings to manage those monthly expenses, I think that kind of kills it. So for breaking it into what's your budget, what are some of those experiences or investments or capital expenses one needs to make, like I need to buy a new furniture, right? If you are buying an expensive furniture, it can throw off your budget for the month, right? Because you would suddenly be spending a lot more than what you would have budgeted. But drawing a little bit of a short term and a long term plan and baking those expenditure as a part of your monthly budget for the year goes a long way in you taking those decisions, so that one can make those expenditure, whether they are planned or unplanned, without impacting savings. That's something I would like to say. Yeah.
Now, I don't think Gaurav and Sanjay are spot on, right? You got to have a budget. You also need to enjoy life, right? There's a sense of people think I got a budget, therefore I can't have any fun. I can't do anything. I can't get anything nice, right? One of the habits that budgeting helps you create is also prioritization, right? What brings you joy? Do you like going out for coffee with your friends? Do you like going out to concerts, right? If music is your passion, then you might prioritize, a couple, some money aside for concerts. And you may say, you know what, I'm not going to go out and get boba every day for after lunch because I'm going to save that money and I'm going to put it towards concerts. So a lot of it is just creating that discipline to make choices and make sacrifices and prioritize the things that you really enjoy over things that maybe your friends enjoy more than you do. One of the things that I did when I was young, when first coming out of university, not earning a lot of money, still trying to save money, people would go out after work and they would go out for either drinks or for dinner and 2 or 3 times a week. That gets expensive, and I wouldn't go because I was on a tight budget. I had school loans that I had to pay off. It was challenging. So what I ended up doing was setting up with some friends kind of a hosting thing where every Friday night we would rotate around a group of friends and they would host and people would come over. So instead of going out to dinner multiple times a night, you would make a meal with some friends and come over and socialize. And then the next week someone else would host, and the week after was someone else would host. So you figure out creative solutions so that you can still socialize. You still spend time with friends. You still enjoy good food if you like enjoying good food. But there's always an alternative out there than to just do what's easy or what everyone else is doing. And seeking that out can also be a very good habit to build.
All right, thank you all for that advice. That was very helpful, and I'm sure many of us will use that in the future. All right, our next question is, has your approach to budgeting or investing evolved over time? Mr. Hattori, do you want to start us off here?
Yeah, so budgeting and investing. Okay, these are kind of the two big tenets in addition to risk management around financial literacy. So budgeting, it probably won't surprise my friends here on this call, but I track everything in software, right? So personally, some people use Mint, I use Quicken. There's a lot of just very accessible software applications out there that you can just track the incoming and outgoing funds that you have, and using that to not monitor every day, but certainly once a year, right? Look at what you spent your money on and reflect upon that and say, you know what, did I really want to spend $850 on streaming services this past year, right? Maybe that sounds a little heavy. Maybe that's something that I could look at and maybe not prioritize that. So from a budgeting standpoint, using the technologies that are out there that are inexpensive and easy, and you link your accounts to them and it's all at a push of a button, is really helpful and insightful because you have information in order to make better decisions. From an investing standpoint, not surprisingly, similar to Sanya, I made some very aggressive investments when I was younger. Some of them panned out, some of them did not. But now it's very simple, right? Investing for me is just low cost index funds like VTI or SPY, right? Funds that have below 0.1% fees, so you're not paying all your returns and fees. They track to a stock market index, whether that's the S&P 500 or VTI tracks all stock indices. And that's where I mostly put so over time, my risk tolerance has kind of gone down, but that's not to say I don't, I've got the fear of missing out as much as everyone else, right? So I take about 10 to 15% of my assets and I put them into more aggressive things. So, I've got Bitcoin, I've got an actively managed fund that a friend of mine runs. I have some in there. But ultimately, I'm looking for low cost funds that are indexed to market and put most of my assets there from an investing standpoint.
So, I think John had a very exhaustive list for you, but one thing that in my experience, right, what has changed is I think of savings. I mean, not now, maybe a little earlier too. I started thinking of savings as paying my future self, right? And then I adopted, and I said this earlier about automatically, sending money off to savings and investments, right? So I've evolved, or I use a pay yourself first approach, where I treat that as non-negotiable, right? So that's one thing which has evolved over time. And the other thing that I'm trying to embrace now is financial minimalism, right? So, yes, you should not put all your eggs in the same basket, but make sure there are not too many to manage as well, right? So, simplifying that is also something that has evolved over time.
All I would say is, managing your budget as a student and managing your budget a few years down in your career, it's very different. Because as a student, you manage daily cash flow, right? You get a certain amount and you manage it. As you go a little later in your career, you manage long range uh, budgets, right? So that's certainly a change which has happened in terms of a habit. So I'm I'm not thinking about tomorrow or next month or next year, but really thinking a lot ahead in the future than I used to do when I was a student and just started, in fact, in my work life. So the, the time frame was very different. John touched very beautifully on the aggressiveness. The aggressiveness was a lot more early on in my career, and it is a lot less a little later in the career. And it's now more about steady, predictable, as Sandhya said, lesser number of instruments than I had as I was understanding about the various instruments and the different facets of investing and budgeting. So that's certainly one thing. The other thing I would say is the risk appetite has changed considerably. I could take a lot more risk early on, and I am less averse to risk at the moment. And therefore, the percentage of what I would put in high risk early on is relatively much lesser than what I am doing today. So, as my career has spanned out, my risk appetite on investment actually has been inversely proportional to that. Uh, you know, to provide more predictability with respect to returns. So that's the only thing I would like to add. Yeah.
Okay, great. Now we plan to move forward with our questions on professional development skills. So the first question I have is, do you have any tips to help someone stand out when applying for jobs? And Mr. Mario, would you like to start us off?
I'm actually the wrong person. I've never applied for a job. I've been with the same company for a little too long. Though, I would say keeping maybe just two, three things, and then I'll actually pass on to others. Uh, I would say uh, keeping yourself abreast with what is the relevance of your skills with respect to the market, I think is one of the first things when it comes to looking for a job. Because if your skills are irrelevant to the market or irrelevant to where the future lies, then it's not about looking for a job. It's actually about looking for how you can upskill or retrain or yourself and prepare yourself in a way that you can actually go out and look for a job, right? So that's my first piece of advice. Kind of curriculum they need to take, how does that align with their passion. So that would be advice number one. Advice for number two is uh, jobs are always about a fine balance between uh, at times risk, which gets into how much you are paid, and stability, and that balance on what kind of job you are looking for straddles between these two parameters. All right, so one has to find which parameters one is comfortable with, as one looks for a job, right? Are you looking for the highest paying job? Are you looking for a job that is aligned to your passion, even though it may not pay you the most? Is the job which you are looking for the stepping stone to the next job which will come after this? And you are going to learn a few skills in the job, and therefore what price are you willing to pay to learn that? And the risk is not just financial, the risk is also personal. Am I ready to put this kind of do this job because it involves travel and impacts the quality of my life, or this job is in those hours that impacts the quality, again the quality of my life, or impacts my health in some way, or whatever it might be. So probably start with before you look for a job, and I would pass it on to the other experts on the panel.
So, well, it's been a while since I've applied for a job. We interview folks all the time, right? From grads coming straight out of university to folks with 25 years of experience. And when you're applying, making sure that your CV on paper meets and is tailored to the job description that you're applying, right? So most people would just kind of carve out their CV and send it out to a bunch of different places. If you can tailor your CV to the requirements and skills that job is looking for, that will help you get to the next step. And then the next step, the interview process, that's really your chance to shine. And I think there's 3 tips on any interview. 1 is prepare, 2 is be inquisitive, and 3, follow up afterwards, right? So prepare, write down 3 questions that you're going to ask the interviewer, either in the middle or at the end, right? Maybe it's about the role, maybe it's about them, maybe it's about the company, maybe it's something you want to highlight about yourself. But prepare 3 questions before you go to that interview so that you have something in case nothing comes up in the interview to ask. Second, in the interview, be inquisitive, ask questions, right? Be engaged, right? Be present for the discussion, right? We all kind of can fall into that routine of just talking about ourselves or a role or a past experience. You want to make sure that you're putting it back to the person who's interviewing you. You can say something about yourself and then end with a question. Do you think the skills that I just described would be helpful in this role? Right? And then lastly is follow up, right? So one question I do for every interview is I'll ask a logic question for my candidate, right? I'm testing their ability to solve an unsolvable problem. So a logic question might be something like, how many cans of white paint were sold in the United States last year, right? That serves 2 purposes. 1, I want to test how someone deals with stress and how they solve a poorly defined problem. But also, I want to leave them with something that's a little offbeat in the interview and give them something to follow up with. So sometimes people will then email back to the recruiter and they'll say, I thought about that logic question you asked, and I forgot to mention these 5 things. This is my revised answer, right? So it's an opportunity for people to come back and follow up, because that shows that they're really engaged, that they were engaged in the discussion and are very interested in the role. That's a good way for people to differentiate themselves.
I agree. I mean, whatever John said is spot on. The core things that you do, and the last example that John gave, and I think I'll start using that going forward, John. That's a really good one. I think, but to you, kids in high school, I think a good thing is to start now, right? When I say start now, start some of the practices that will help you when you're going to make applications for job later on, right? What I mean by practice is practice articulating the experiences that you're learning. For example, if it's even DECA, right? If you're involved in an extracurricular activity like DECA or a school project, you'd start documenting your achievements, right? What have you learned from these experiences, right? That will help you. So, for example, when going forward, when you build a LinkedIn, and you can start building a simple LinkedIn profile even now to showcase your activities, right? Share insights. So that all of that will help not only highlight your expertise, but also show your passion and commitment to your field, right? So I would say start now, and start articulating your, get into the habit of articulating your experiences. So it comes out very naturally when you're attending an interview or making a job application.
Okay. Our next question is. Give me a second. Okay. If you could give any advice to your younger self, what would it be? Mr. Saha, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, I think I was looking at your questions. I'm glad that you all sent it out, right? If you look at 7, 8, 9, 10, we're kind of discussing all of them together, right? Similar in the first section. I mean, it's kind of interdependent. So, a couple of things that's what we learned, right, today, whatever John was mentioning. See, I mean, step back, I mean, just from a interview perspective, in which I will give more time to my younger self, right? When we have a conversation one on one, whether it's an interview or it's what we call it an executive speech for 30 seconds when you meet, and which will actually go into the next section of networking as well. We have to figure out what the other person is going to get out of the 30 seconds or 2-minute conversation. It's true for any interview, any discussion, or anything. Even today, right? Whether you will remember me after 1 year, yes, we had a conversation, and this person has actually left a lasting impression about me or her in this conversation. It's very important, which I was not really, knowing all these things growing up, to be honest with you, right? And some of us are working in Cognizant for too long, so we had only one job. But the interview happens every day, which you do not realize. And I mean, me and John were talking about the other day, and you are continuously selling. See, interviews are selling as well. And in our life, in personal life, Sandhya, we are talking about these things, right? I am actually, when I am trying to convince my daughter about certain, or trying to convince my wife about certain things in home, I am also continuously selling, and she has to get something out of that. That when we both walk away of the situation saying that it's a win-win, and it's exactly the same thing in interviews and job process. John talked about, you know, you should, based on the job profile, you should spend more little bit of time, what do you call, tailoring your resume to that, right? Go prepared with some questions. I will actually go one step forward. If you know the interviewer beforehand, the name, research about him or her, and you will, in this social media, in this world, you will get to know. I mean, I'll just tell you about an interview I did, okay? And he was one of the C-suite person, and I, at the end of the day, he's asked me, I said, I don't have a question of the job, but I said, in one of the interviews you mentioned that you wanted to do this, did you actually achieve that? And he was like floored, right? So this guy came so much knowing about me, and obviously that was, we learned over a period of time. But those were the things, I think, what you are doing, talking to us, talking to, I am sure, other professional people. Take this as a learning, what we should have done in younger years, whether it is financial literacy or career advice or networking, and start adapting on a day-to-day life. You will see your interactions with your friends will go up multi-folds. It will be a much more pleasing conversation when we can start understanding each other across the table, and it's a joyful experience. That's what I would say.
I can just add, and I think John and Sandhya talked beautifully about it in the previous question. It gets down to preparation uh, and really preparing for the interviews and for the interaction is something I would have told my younger self. Uh, you know, I was a little more casual in my approach. I think missed a few opportunities, not really understanding, and someone kind of points out on the value which somebody would get out of interviewing me. Um, and that gets down to preparing because one has to prepare in terms of getting one's resume updated, understanding what one's story is, how does that story align to what the job is about, understanding about who the interviewer is, and why are they want to hire a candidate, and why are you best suited to be that candidate. I think I'm answering some of those questions and preparing for some of those questions. I did not do a good job in as a younger self. My career would have been in a very different trajectory, uh, uh, but opportunity missed is also opportunity learned. So I learned through those failures, and I'm sure all of us have had our own set of failures and learning moments every day as we interview candidates uh, in our respective roles for jobs, and how they fare up in those 30 minutes or 1 hour interviews, which help us learn some of those skills.
And I just added Gaurav here, right? So Anuashi and Sanvi. So you're talking about interviews, career, but I think you are going to see this in your college applications, okay? When you're going to send it out, please, when you are mainly for those private colleges, when you're sending out, please do a little bit of research about the panel who might be reading, or what is your passion in that college, tied back. And I'll just give you an example. My daughter, one of the colleges she went to, where she went in undergrad, she specifically wrote, I would get an opportunity to work with this professor if I, that is one of my main motivations. And 4 years down the line, she got an opportunity. Forget about that. But now when master's application came, she actually completed the story. Not only I did that, but actually followed it up, and I had an opportunity to work with. So little bit of research even in your college applications, whatever we were talking about, and you will probably get interviewed for some of the private colleges will come and interview one-on-one, right? In the Starbucks or whatever. This will help you as well, even today. Forget about, in the future. This will happen today for you as well. Because I lived through that experience in my house.
Yeah. When you're young, it's really about take risks. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. You'll learn from them, like Gaurav pointed out. And then also look for something that I didn't do when I was younger. Look at who your boss is, or maybe your boss's boss. Is that person someone you admire? Can you learn from them? Right? That leader and that leader's leader, right? That they're going to influence you, whether you like it or not. They're going to influence you, and you want that to make sure that they're influencing you in the right way. Right? Do they behave ethically? Do they do the right thing? What traits do they have that you admire? Right? So looking at, Suman, gave a great example about his daughter and a professor, right? Whether it's a job, whether it's in a community, whether it's volunteering, or whether it's at university, in any environment, look at who the leaders are. And if you can learn from them, and if you admire them, it's going to make it more attractive of an opportunity.
The two things that I would tell my younger self is one, start exploring your interests, right? Don't feel pressure to have everything figured out immediately. That's one thing I would probably like to go back and do. The second thing is emphasize on the importance of building relationships and seeking mentorships early on, not when you have a problem or when you're really stuck, right? So these are two things that I would say myself. I just want to pause here. Ashi, Anu, I saw a message which said that the meeting would end now. Is this okay, taken care of? It said it's going to end at 10:45 my time, 10:45 PST. If it does, I was just going to say send out another invite and we can use 15 minutes more. But is it taken care of?
Looks like Anu made another link, so if necessary, we can email that out as soon as possible.
Okay, sure.
Yes, I'm sent the link in the chat as well, so if everyone can just join that.
And do you want us to join that one?
Yes, because I believe this meeting is going to end right now.
Sure.
Is everyone's audio working on this? Can everyone hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
we can
Yep.
see you.
Great.
Okay. apologies for the interruption. Ms. Gangadharan, would you like to continue?
No, I think I kind of answered that question. I was kind of conscious of the time before it ends, but yeah, those are the two things, Ashi, which is basically, and I think it applies to a lot of young people today. There's information overload, right? So don't feel pressure to have everything figured out. Use the opportunity to explore your interests. And like I said, building relationships, don't do that, or even mentorships, right? Don't do that when you have a problem. Kind of start early on. Those are two things I would say myself.
Okay, we appreciate the insight on career advice from all of you. We have a couple questions on networking. So our first question is, what strategies have you used to build and maintain professional relationships? And Ms. Gangadharan, would you like to start on that?
What strategies have you used to, to maintain relationships, did you say?
Build and maintain professional relationships.
Okay. So for me, it's been pretty much so. Like Gaurav and others were saying, I've been in my current company for a very long time. So for me, it's been pretty much LinkedIn, work-related workshops, conferences, etc. But I have a son who is in the university, and given the current times, right, I've been advising him to use platforms like Meetup and I think even Bright. That is to find and attend industry events and workshops, right? I think in today's world, these in-person interactions will lead to deeper connections than the online networking alone. So that's what I would suggest is what you can use to expand your network.
In terms of strategies, I think there's a book written out there. You may have to Google it. I can't remember the author, but it's like having a helper mentality, right? And it's how can you help that person, right? Rather than how can they help you, right? Is there a business problem that you can solve? Is there a relationship that you can help them make? And people remember folks that help them. So the strategy that this helps to build relationships is trying to help other people before you try and seek out help yourself, right? Leading with that type of mentality. As far as maintaining relationships, I think that's where you can use things like LinkedIn or other social media to just be seen a little bit, right? We're all human. We all have our terrible memories. And you could have a great relationship with a boss, but 9 months later, they just forgot, right? And they have a perfect position for you. But if they haven't seen you or heard from you or talked from you, it's going to be hard for them to make that mental connection. Versus if they see you popped up in LinkedIn, if you follow up with a card or a call or a text or something else, you're top of mind. You're more visible. So using social platforms to just remain visible to your already existing network, I think is probably the most useful form for those platforms. Because I agree with Sandhya, it's hard to make good impressions over the various electronic platforms, but they are okay to help maintain relationships. One last thing on networking, right? Small talk's hard for everybody, right? No one likes small talk. Be authentic, right? Ask questions that you're genuinely interested in. Find something interesting about that person that you have either common interests. It could be kids, it could be a hobby, it could be a passion for travel, right? Every human being on this earth is interesting, but in their own way. So be authentic, be inquisitive, but don't just ask questions just to ask questions or pass time. That doesn't bring anyone anywhere, and it doesn't serve you, it doesn't serve them. So I would give you that advice is be inquisitive and be authentic. And it's okay to say thank you for your time and walk away too, right?
Yeah. I think Sandhya and Jonathan covered quite some ground on networking. Look, my only tip would be around the discipline of networking. So maintaining a record of who you know, who you had great relationships with, and finding the time to touch base with them on an ongoing basis, because great connections happen and then they fall through the cracks because either one gets very busy or one is in a different phase in their career. uh, so networking is as much about discipline, uh, because if you are not in touch with somebody over the years, then re-establish that connect is equally hard. So that's the only tip I would give you. And as you are building on very early in your life, I would say it's great to maintain a database of who all you know. The use of technology is probably the best way, and then leveraging that technology not just to consume but also to track on how your interactions have been, who are you interacting with, where are you missing in terms of building a network with, and someone give that great example with college professors in a certain area, or with your peer group who are uh, doing DECA or whatever is your interest, right? That's so I would say the discipline of networking is as important as networking.
So, I mean, this is little, very close to my heart. Sorry, I missed out a couple of things. Adding on to Gaurav, okay? I mean, networking is again a human relationship. It is between my father and me, between my wife and me, between two human beings, right? So it cannot be one way. Meaning, I know somebody and I will only ping him or her when I need. That not work. I mean, you have to genuinely invest on some time, staying in touch, sharing common relationships and all this stuff. And that person may be junior, younger than you in your, but you never know how the things turn up, etc. That one is just like financial acumen. Networking acumen is an investment of time in that particular relationship, in my opinion, and that will take you a long way. And so that's you have to do it, right? I mean, from the heart. If you have to really genuinely talk about networking, I mean, but if you say, okay, I know this person, I can ping, but is that person what we call in our job, John and me, we do that all the time, is my person going to respond to my text if I send him something, right? That's our test of our relationship in professional life, beyond emails and all this stuff. That's what I would, this is like little extreme, but if you can actually aim towards it, I think all whatever we are saying is all going to make sense. It's a journey as well.
Okay. Adding on to your last responses, this leads us to our last question. Can you share an example of a connection that significantly impacted your career? Mr. Hattori, would you like to start us off?
So, years ago, I started my career at Accenture, and I came out of university and spent the first 11 years of my career there. When I was young, I think it was third or fourth year, there was a guy helping the account that I was at. I was at the Department of Education. At the time, we were bringing the FAFSA online and merging common origination disbursements of grants and Pell Grants and direct loans or Stafford loans. And we were trying to figure out how to build a large deal at the Department of Education. And this guy, John McGuire, comes in. He had sold $2 billion deals at IBM. Very senior, very experienced, comes in, and he just starts kind of helping and coaching our team. And I'm pretty inquisitive in nature, and I would, I had spent a lot of time there. I knew the customer. I spent a lot of time with the customer, and I challenged John and asked him and shared a lot of information with him. And he's, 5 levels my senior, right? My boss's 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 boss, right? But he and I really hit it off. We had some. Turns out we had some common interests, and just he liked the fact that people were challenging him, right? Because it helped to produce a better product and a better outcome for our customer. And you fast forward 20 years later, John and I are close friends. He's helped me with not 1, not 2, but 3 huge career opportunities, some of which I've taken, some of which I haven't. And he's also the first phone call I make when I have a tough decision, whether it be a professional question, whether it be a job opportunity, or just a difficult decision that I need to make that may impact other people. I call John. Now, I've never asked him to be a mentor. I've never formally, called him a mentor, but that's what he is, right? And something that grew organically, right? It grew over time, over some shared interests. We'll go years without, talking, and then I might talk to him every day for a week, right? It kind of comes and goes. We connect once a year through written correspondence, but maybe not phone call. But that's the type of relationship that I've built with John over time. So that's had a significant impact on my career. It's helped me make better decisions as a leader. It's given me job opportunities, but also it's helped provide me perspective, right? Because while I always think I'm right, I'm never always right. No one is, right? And he has a very, very seasoned and thoughtful point of view that is very times different than my own, that sometimes I follow, sometimes I don't. But having that point of view is absolutely critical. And I thank John for helping me perform and be able to deliver more value in my role over time because of that relationship.
Yeah, I would actually give a more professional example of how a relationship advanced our business just because of a networking. So I was actually at a client event where I stumbled upon an individual. We introduced ourselves, um, just names. Later, after a course of great discussion over 30 minutes, after we stopped and parted ways, we exchanged our cards. He happened to be the president of one of our largest clients. And little did I realize that I had met somebody who had billions and billions of dollars of budget as a part of his remit. And that's the guy I was having a conversation with. Flash forward a year later, this client had a major security incident. I would actually give it to this individual who picked up the phone and called me out of nowhere and said, I remember during this discussion, you were talking about cybersecurity and what's your opinion about this incident? And we were not doing much business for this client. And I can tell you the course of next 20 days, I was his advisor as he was working with some other organization, our competitor, to remediate that cybersecurity incident. Flash forward another year, he literally opened the door for our organization to walk into this client without any competition and awarded us what I call now hundreds of millions of dollars of business to our firm. So what started as a casual networking conversation at an event resulted in hundreds of millions of dollars to my organization, but candidly made me look good year after year after year in my performance through this great network which I built. And the conversation with this individual has been active for the last 10 years, and we never discuss business. It's he's never discussed about what we do for them, or but it's always two professionals sharing ideas, and I think somebody made that point earlier. In every conversation, I try to provide value, try to be authentic. If I don't know something, I say, look, I don't know about it, but I'll get back to you. And that has worked brilliantly over the years for me.
I know we're up on time, but I just wanted to, kind of say almost the same thing Sir John and Gaurav was saying, right? Authenticity, being authentic, right? That has helped me in. So most of my career moves have been in the same organization, and I would say all of them have come from recommendations. And I think that's based on the authenticity that I've displayed in my interactions with those managers or supervisors. Yes, I can single out one of my previous managers, who has made a significant impact, not just on my professional life, but on my personal life as well. And like John, I do go to him today, when I'm faced with a challenge, or I just want to run my mind through someone, right, as to what options I'm considering and things like that. But I think all of that stems back to the authenticity that you have in your daily interactions. I think that's been key for me.
No, I think thank you. Let's wrap it up. I think I echo the sentiment. I'm not taking some names, but there are many in my career. Some of them are in Cognizant, some of them are CEOs of other companies now, ex-Cognizant. So directly or indirectly, I mean, this definitely helped with options, whether John was mentioning whether we have taken these options or not, but these are individuals I can personally go through for any situations where I know that that conversation will not be objectively, measured in the context of a cognizant relationship, rather what is right for this individual or the situation. And that has definitely helped. And fast forward to some of them when that person actually needed some help, to Gaurav's point, right? And in his personal life, I was the first person he called, even though I'm much junior, right? And take care of that, right? So definitely yes, all of us, I think in summary, have actually gotten a lot of benefits out of our network in commitments that we had and known people over